it.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Hopefully you are refreshed after a beautiful weekend and joining us this Monday for our second of two Learning from the Land series. I am going to start the morning by giving an acknowledgement, a land acknowledgement. You're sitting on ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq, but you could also be virtually joining us from territories west of us, the Wolastoq, or south of us, the Passamaquoddy. So welcome. I do need to say that we here at the Department of Education and all the partners joining us today are really committed to bringing Indigenous perspectives into environmental sciences and sustainable education. So I am thrilled to have Elder JoeJohn Sanipass here with us today to sort of kick things off. And I am going to offer him virtually my tobacco and promise that, JoeJohn, you will get this in person in November when we come up, hopefully, in the middle of the month to be physically on the land in Elsipogtog. So welcome everybody again, and JoeJohn, thank you for joining us this morning.
Bonjour, mon ami. Comment ça va?
Ça va bien. Merci.
Beautiful day, and hello everyone. My name is JoeJohn, and my spirit name is Musigis, Sky. And I'm going to say a translation of prayers in Mi'kmaq and also English, all right?
Perfect.
And I want everybody to be happy today and have a good, enjoy yourselves. And I'll say in Mi'kmaq first. Tiniskam, abig sik tuwinen, abig sik tuwinen. Get me there, the more get me there, right? And they'll do it, abig sik tuwinen. But I do in, come lamon, you know, chill out of dango, we cheer the come up, sitting one. The come lamon, next, Maui Danan, Maui Woodnen, Maui Bort Marok. All right, then I'll say it in English. Oh, Great Spirit, forgive us. Forgive us. Open up our hearts. All the pain and sickness that we have inside of our heart to let go. We have to work together, get together, and pray together. Merci beaucoup.
Walala and JoeJohn, thank you so much. Please, everybody know that JoeJohn is also a talented basket maker, we hear. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your work when I'm up, JoeJohn. And before you leave that building, you make sure Mr. Ivan has your address, because I have something I'd like to send you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So if you can see the screen, it should be introducing you to Mr. Sheldon Hann from Ag Canada. And Sheldon, if you want to take over the screen, we are excited to hear what you have on soils.
That's great. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me again today. It's a real privilege to be able to talk about soil science with all of you guys. So I'm here today, and my name is Sheldon Hann. I'm a biologist, a research biologist in Fredericton with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and my presentation today is getting the dirt on soil. Just a little introduction into soil science. So before we get going, you know, as somebody who works in soils, before we go to the field and actually dig a soil pit or you know, take any soil samples, we first get an idea of what the landscape or the soil might look like. Based on those landscape pictures or just the lay of the land. So I'm going to start off by asking some questions already this morning. So does anybody see any patterns in the landscape in this picture? If so, please feel free to yell at what you see.
I see someone there, Michelin, who's dying to give an answer.
Who said? Go. They said green and red.
Yeah, so you see that there are different colors in the landscape. So this indicates different tree species or the time of year. For example, it's fall. And you can actually see, if I get my mouse here, so you can actually see that, you know, there's dark green colors over here on this side of the mountain. So that's a specific tree species that is found on that side of the mountain. There's then more hardwood species here. So these are hardwood species that have changed their leaves and drop their leaves in the fall. And then you have the hardwood species or evergreen conifers. Coniferous trees, they're keep their needles during the winter. You'll learn more about this with Bernie, but so it's just being able to recognize that these patterns exist in nature. And these patterns actually can give us clues about what we can find underneath the trees or in the soils. So the landscape and what grows on the landscape or what grows on the surface actually gives us indications about what we can find underneath. So kind of these rules of thumb are that, you know, evergreen species, these coniferous trees, they tend to do better in different soils than the deciduous trees. Usually the north-facing slopes of hills or mountains tend to be cooler and wetter. The soils tend to be cooler and wetter. The south-facing slopes tend to be warmer and drier. You can see here that, find my mouse. You can see here that there are some areas that don't have any vegetation at all. No trees, no plants. So, you know, this gives us an indication of what we can find over here, as well as these really steep areas, steep slopes. You see that there's no vegetation here, so the vegetation cannot grow on those steep slopes. So these are things that we can use in nature to establish patterns and give us ideas of what we can find. So can anybody yell out any patterns that you see in this picture? Everybody but Bernie, maybe.
It doesn't connect. That's a great answer. I heard that. It's isolated.
More evergreens, someone said.
There's different colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Different colors. Good.
Yeah, so you can see that there's these colors that exist in the landscape. You can see that there's, you know, areas that are higher. This mountaintop tend to have a different color, or the trees species that are there are different than what's on the sides of the hills. And usually the top of hills tend to be drier than the slopes or the base of the hills. So then more certain tree species or certain plant species like these wet or drier conditions. So this can give us indications of what we can find if we dig a soil pit there. You can see that on this peninsula, there's there's kind of like this line that cuts across. And you can see that there's more deciduous trees here, and it's more of a mixed wood type of forest here. So, you know, these are giving us indications that something is going on that's controlling this, whether that's soils or drainage or like a wetness of the soil, or you know, different tree species like different sites. All right, so here's an agricultural picture. Can anybody point out a pattern or a feature?
Different shades of green.
Different shades of green.
Yep, that's a really great answer.
Broken house.
I didn't hear that one, sorry.
Barn.
Barns. And
Oh, it was about the burn.
Yep. Yeah, so you can see here that, so this is a grain field in New Brunswick. It's wheat, and you can actually see that there's different colors across the wheat field. You know, you get these darker green areas that show up. So the grain here in this location is more mature than what the green stripe there. You can see the line. You can see there's another line here, and down here there's another line. So it's, you know, the crop is actually maturing at different rates across the field. And you can see that the farmer didn't plant any crops in this higher area. So these are indications of what we can find. There's a reason why the farmer didn't plow up this field up here and plant anything in there. So these ridges that you'll find, those are, you know, directly linked back to what soil can be found underneath. So maybe they're, you know, less compact, so there's been less traffic, less tractor paths and stuff like that ride over them, so they're less compact, so they hold more moisture, or they're more favorable for plant growth. And this upper portion, look at the mouse here again, this upper portion is probably too steep. The farmer's equipment can't harvest the crop or plant the crop that is up there. So, you know, there's an indication that there's a slope here, a steep slope. So I got one more picture, guys. So here's a potato farm in Grand Falls, New Brunswick. Can anybody see any patterns you see in the landscape? So this is an aerial view, like a bird that's looking down. Can anybody see any patterns?
Different, it looks different stripes. There's no potatoes though. There's stripes. What?
It's far away. You're not gonna see.
Yeah, no, exactly. You got it. There's different stripes in the field. Yep. Does anybody know why those stripes are there, or why those fields are positioned in that way?
Different potatoes.
Good try. Good try. Anybody else?
Sweet potatoes. Wetness and dryness.
Sweet potatoes. Yeah, I could go into a whole conversation about potatoes versus sweet potatoes, but I'll hold on. Yeah. So the reason, if I get my mouse here, so you can see that the farmer has actually, so this was initially one big field, and the farmer went in and they split the field into these kind of rows of fields. So these fields, these rows of fields, they're called terraces actually. And the reason why they are like, the farmer does this is that this field is actually has a slope. So the slope is pointing down this way, so water would run down the field this way. And to minimize soil erosion, or to minimize the amount of soil that's taken off the field by rainfall or flooding events, those things, the farmer will actually create these terraces so that all of the crops now run in this direction along the contour. That's called along the contour of the slope. So he or she will plant those crops along in these contours, in these terraces, and then separating the terraces, you have these buffers. So that's probably grasses or it could be trees planted there. And the whole purpose of those buffers or those terraces is to absorb the water that's coming off of the field, to trap the sediments from running down into the stream systems. So it's called a beneficial management practice. So it's a way to conserve soil erosion, to conserve soil. And then but if I get the mouse, but the farmer also has to direct the water flow. So they can't just terrace the field without actually being able to direct the water flow. So that's why they install these waterways, these kind of lines going between them. And those are actually grassways. So they just plant grass in there. And all the water that's running down from the field actually runs down into this waterway and makes its way into the stream system. But because the grass is present, it's able to absorb the nutrients and filter through the water and be able to direct that water down through. So you get minimal erosion. You can see that there's, you know, these terraces all occur here as well. So there's a slope here that occurs. Can anybody else, if you look at the soil color, or if you look at the color, is there anything that pops out to you? To anybody? So if you look here at this, kind of see this line that goes down through the soil, the fields, does anybody have an idea of why that is there? You can see that this area is darker over here as well compared to here. Any ideas?
It's gray.
I can't hear, sorry.
Gray. Somebody said
Yeah.
it's gray. Maybe
Yeah.
it seems growing there because it's not green.
Yeah, so what is happening here is that these darker areas are indications that the soil is wetter there. There's more moisture found in the soil. So these areas that are lighter have less water or less soil moisture than these darker areas. So you can see over here as well. So there's some really good indications. We haven't even dug a soil pit yet or haven't even stepped into the field, and we kind of already have an idea of you know, where water might be, and we know that this is a sloped area. And if you look in this field in the center here, you can actually see it's planted with a crop, but you see these gray areas that show up here and then these dark green areas. So these are really good indications that there's something going on with the soil, because the plant, if I get the mouse here again, the plant is actually doing poorer in this location than in this location. If it was all planted at the same time, you know, there's a reason why the crop is not growing well here versus here. So this is giving us really good indications that we should go check it out and see what's going on there. So, you know, there could be something like compaction, or it could be, you know, the plant, when they seeded the plants in, it wasn't seeded at the proper depth and the plants died, those types of things. So yeah, like I said, being able to view the actual location can give you really great clues to what you're going to expect before you even go out there and dig. So now we're actually going to start the presentation. So before we kind of head out to the field and do all that, we look at everything, we look at those pictures, we see what we can expect it there, but you know, when it comes down to it, we need to understand what soil is exactly first. So the definition of soil is the top layer of the Earth's surface that's composed of minerals, organic matter, living organisms, water, and air. So these components all work together to support life. And they're continuously changing. So they're dynamic, which means that if something is added to the system, like if more organic material is added to the system or organic matter, then the system has to change in order to, or adapt to that change. So if there's more air, more water added to the soil system has to change to account for that change and to account for that extra water. So then why do we study soil? Why is it so important? So everything is directly or indirectly linked back to soil. So you can see based on this picture, you know, there are different soil functions. Soil plays really vital functions, really important functions. For all that we do, it provides, it gives us food and fiber and fuel. It sequesters carbon, it purifies water, it regulates climates, it's used in nutrient cycling, it's habitat for organisms that provide this nutrient cycling. You know, there provides foundations for everything that we build on it. So it's directly linked or indirectly, you know, the clothes we eat, the clothes we wear, the food we eat, the fuel we use, it's all linked back to soil. And then, so what's really important is that our actions affect this soil resource. And we need to be able to understand that resource if we're going to use it sustainably for future generations, for, you know, your kids' kids' kids. If we want to make sure that we manage it properly and understand how it works in order to make sure it's there for those generations. So here's just a couple of pictures of kind of how I got back into soils. So here's a potato field in New Brunswick. And you can see that, you know, it's a very large potato field. You can see the potato rows. And then you can see that, you know, the areas between the potato rows have very little vegetation or very little plants there. This is due to how the potatoes are grown. But because of that, there's nothing to intercept the rainfall. There's nothing to catch the rainfall that comes down or the water that rides on top of the soil. So because of that, you get a lot of these sediments, or a lot of the soil that's found in here washed away. So here you can see somebody cut a trench in a potato field, and we can actually get an idea of how much soil leaves that field after a rainfall event. You know, this soil that's down here in this trench is highly productive. It's usually, we'll get into textures later, but it's usually more fine textured soils, things that hold nutrients really well. So, and then what you're left with is, if all of this productive soil leaves the field, then you're left with less productive soil that you're actually trying to grow crops. So how do we keep all that soil in the field? That's, you know, how do we manage those crops better so we can keep, you know, minimize the soil erosion? And here's another example of a field in New Brunswick, potato field in New Brunswick. So the grower went in, they harvested their crop, they left the residue, which is the plant material, on the surface of the soil to plow in so they could increase the organic matter, help out the soil system. But then between, you know, when they harvested and before they were able to apply another crop, there was a rainfall event, and then you get this erosion again, this gullies forming in the field. All this soil is eroding away from the field, ending up in the water, system.
Sheldon, I'm going to ask a question if you don't
Sure.
mind.
Go right ahead.
Anybody in the class live on a farm or have family that live on a farm? You just show your hand. You don't have to see a one. Wonderful. What's the main crop grown on that farm? Is it potatoes, everything, vegetables? Is it a dairy farm? Can somebody?
Cattle?
Dairy farm?
No, cattle.
Oh, okay, cattle farm. Sweet. Anybody in the class have a garden? This summer was really, really dry for our gardens. We have one gardener, two gardeners. Okay, just getting a feel for maybe their soil background. So thanks, Sheldon.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and with that cattle farm, you're
Mm.
not going to see these massive erosion, rainfall events affecting this erosion, because a lot of the fields are left for pasture. But then there comes other things that we need to watch for and take care of. Things like make sure we don't have compaction showing up in our field with everything trampling on the soil. Being able to rotate the fields with the cattle so they can actually move from field to field and utilize the different crops that are grown for feed. So we've covered what soil is, why it's important. Now we can look at exactly what it looks like. So what does soil look like? There's three main broad classes of soils. There's forest soils, or soils that are found in the forest. Under forest environments, there's agricultural soils, so soils that are found in agricultural settings, and then there's organic soils as well. So I'm not going to cover the organic soils for the presentation. I'm just going to look at the forest soils and the agricultural soils. So here's, you can see here's a picture of a forest ecosystem. So you have the tree species, and then you have fallen trees and mosses and plants and cones and twigs and needles all laying on the surface of the forest floor. And then if we dug a soil pit into that that location, this is likely what we're going to find. We're going to find these soil horizons, they're called. So these soil horizons, each one is different than the other, usually in what they are comprised of, or what makes up the differences between them. So you have and they can have up to 5 different horizons. So the first horizon is a forest floor horizon. So that's just pretty much exactly what I showed a picture of. All these dead and decaying organic material, the log as it's decaying, the plant material that's dying in the fall and winter gets added to the soil on the surface, needles, leaves, pine cones, those types of things. So that's the forest floor. The forest floor has different horizons as well based on how well decomposed it is. And so this forest floor horizon, it's made up of only organic material. There's no sand, silt, or clay, which is a mineral soil found in there. So it's just organic material. And then what happens, get this mouse here, what happens is that the organic material that's found here is used as a food source for organisms, whether microorganisms or macroorganisms, and they actually break down this organic material and mix it in with the A horizon. So the A horizon is the organic material that's found up here. It's called, when it's completely broken down, it's called humus, and the humus gets mixed in with the sand, silt, and the clay to create this mineral horizon, the A horizon. Usually if it has high organic material, it'll be black in color because it's fully decomposed organic material. And then under that black darkish horizon that's mixed with organic material and sand, silt, and clay, you get this white band. And this is A horizon. It's called an AE or eluviated. You don't need to worry about that. It just means that everything is leached out or taken out, stripped out of this horizon. So what happens is the rainfall flows down through the soil pit or the soil horizons. It then takes or leaches out all the nutrients out of this horizon, leaving it this white color, and deposits all those nutrients in the B horizon. And usually the B horizon is really a bright color, it's really brilliant, usually red in color with lots of irons and aluminums. It could have organic matter in there as well. And then we just move down through the soil profile. Usually there's a transition period between the rich, nutrient-rich B horizon and the C horizon, which is below, and this is usually called a BC horizon, or it could be like a different B horizon, but just, you know, understanding that there are these different colors, and these colors actually mean something. It means whether a concentration of organic material, if it's really black in color, or concentrations of minerals and nutrients, if it's bright red in color, and then the white is that it's stripped out. So what you'll notice is that if you look in the soil horizon, I keep losing my mouse. If you look in the soil horizon, you can see where the root systems of the plants, where they stop. So they usually stop right about the B horizon here. So the plants know where the nutrients are found, and they go there and they find them. So the majority of the root systems that provide that nutrition are going to be found in that B horizon. So that's an example of a forest soil. You know, they're found all through New Brunswick in forest regions. If you just go to your backyard or your woodlot and you just take a shovel and dig a soil pit, you'll probably find these horizons, the whites and the red horizon. They're the A and the B.
So Sheldon, could we expect to see a profile something like this in Elsipogtog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, completely. And hopefully we'll be able to go and actually dig one. So. And we can actually see these different horizons and feel them and be able to look at the different colors and what the colors mean. And then so the other you know, broad class that I'm going to cover today is this agricultural soils. So how do these look? So here you can see is a barley field that's been planted, and if we dig a soil pit in this soil type, you can see, so here are the crops that are planted above. Lose my mouse. Here's the crops that are planted here. And then underneath those crops, so every year the farmer will go in, they'll go in with a plow, and they'll plow under, it's called, the crops that are left there. So if it's a rotational crop or a crop that's been harvested, they'll take the tractor and a plow and they'll plow this down. So what the plow does, it actually takes, losing this mouse, my God. It takes all this organic material and plows it into the A horizon, creating this AP or plow horizon. So it's a horizon that's enriched or has a lot of organic material in it, which creates which makes it this black color. So this is high in organic material, high in minerals and nutrients. And this is what the next year's crop, or 2021's crop, will be planted in once it's plowed under. And then once we go below that AP horizon, you start to see, there's a bit of a whitish horizon here. So there's that white horizon showing back up, or that horizon that's been leached out, or all the nutrients have been taken out. And then you see this red horizon that shows back up again. So that's the B horizon again. There's also all these different suffixes that go with these horizons. It's a whole science in itself, soil classification. And then you see the C horizon, which is pretty much the parent material that's starting to break down or getting broke down. So you can see that there are these distinct horizons that show up as you move down in the soil profile. Each one of those soil horizons means something different. It talks about the color of them and the texture of them, or the color of them and the organic matter that's present in there. They're all those are the important things, that the reasons why they're classified differently, or that's what distinguishes them from each other. So now that we know what we can see or what we can find in a soil pit, how are we able to understand if a soil is good or not, or is it fulfilling its functions? Remember that picture that I had up that had all the soil functions on it? How do we know if it's meeting the criteria for the function it's trying to provide? So this is where we talk about soil quality and soil health. So being able to understand soil quality. So there's just a definition of soil quality. It's the capacity of a soil to function within an ecosystem or land use, to sustain biological productivity, maintain environmental quality, and promote plant and animal health. So it's a really complex definition, and all it really means is that if a soil, if the primary function of a soil is for land use, like an agricultural field, are there things that we can measure that we can see if it's meeting that function? Or if a soil is used for, it's a woodlot that's used for a habitat for organisms, then are there different things that we can measure where we can say, yes, it's meeting the criteria, or no, there are stresses on that system? So there's two different pictures here. I didn't cover this on Friday, but it might be good to go over. So there's two different pictures here. The one on the left and the one on the right, they're just soil samples that have been taken from two separate fields. Which one do you think has higher soil quality?
Oh, good question. Red shirt, go ahead.
The one in the big fluffy one.
By left
Big
or right?
fluffy one.
So the one on the left, this one here.
Yeah.
So and why do you think that? Why, what's your reasoning?
That one's darker.
Yep, which means what?
It's healthier.
So what makes it darker?
It's wet.
Why is it darker?
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So you're absolutely right. So this one here has higher soil quality than this one would have in terms of environmental conservation and agricultural and forest settings. It has higher soil quality. There's more plant species you can see on the surface of it. There's organisms that are actually opening up the soil. There's earthworms in there.
Yeah.
So those actually decompose the organic material, create more of this organic matter that's into the system, into the soil. You can see that it's a lot fluffier, great term. You can see that it's a lot fluffier, which means that it's not compact, which means that roots can pass through it easily. So, so there's higher organic matter, there's higher soil moisture, there's organisms in the soil, whereas this one seems pretty compact. You don't see those worms that are in there, so you expect that this is going to provide more benefits to plants and animals than this one will. This one will be harder to get the plant roots through compared to this one. Great job. So now we know what soil quality is. So then how do we measure it? So, for the past 10 years, I've been working with measuring soil quality to understand what we do, how it affects the soil resource. So there are three main soil quality indicators, three main broad classes of soil quality indicators. And then I'm going to talk about what soil properties or what things can we actually measure in the soil that can give us an idea of what the soil quality is like. So the three main broad classes of soil quality indicators are physical, chemical, and biological. So when I put this diagram here, you don't have to worry about it, but it just goes to show, biological, here are the different components that we can measure. Chemical, here are the different components. And physical, here are the different components. But I'll talk more broadly about them. So the physical quality in the soil quality indicators relate back to how dense the soil is, how quickly or slowly air and water move through the soil, and how easy it is for a plant root system or an organism to make its way down into the soil. So if the soil is really compact and really hard to get through, plant growth is going to be stunted. It's going to be really compact. It's going to be really hard to get water to pass through there. water and air to reach down into the soil. And if you think about these, the organisms that are present there, their role is to break down all the organic material, all the plant residues, the plants. They break down all this stuff. If they don't have air and water and the soil is compact, it's going to be hard for them to do their job. And then a soil property that we use that we can actually go measure for a soil physical indicator is soil texture. So I'll talk about soil texture in a second, but the more compact the soil is, usually relates back to low quality. The more coarse it is, or the more open the structure of the soil is, like that previous picture, the higher the quality. The second indicator, the broad indicator that we can look at is chemical. So the chemical is what chemicals can we find, or what minerals and nutrients can we find in the soil? Because all of these are linked back to plant growth and nutrients that are picked up by the plants or used by organisms within the soil as food sources. So we can actually take soil samples and measure that and see, is the soil high in nutrients and minerals, or is it low? And then if we look at the biological soil quality indicator has to deal with the actual organisms that are found in a given soil, as well as the organic matter that's present. So the organic matter that's present is the food source for many of these microorganisms or organisms. And then we can actually take a soil sample. We can run the molecular biology magic that they run, and we can actually get an idea of what percentages of these organisms are found within a given soil. So kind of like a broad, like a broad rule of thumb is the more diversity you find, more biological diversity you find, the greater the soil quality. So the more number of organisms you find, more groups of organisms you find, the higher the soil quality. So for these biological soil quality indicators, we can actually take a soil sample and measure organic matter, as it's a good indication to the health of the soil. So that's how we would measure soil. So now we're going to talk about these soil properties that I had just discussed about, these soil quality indicators and how we can actually measure them. So identifying soil properties, so soil texture. So as I just mentioned, that physical soil quality indicator, a really good measurement of that is soil texture. So soil texture refers to the proportions of sand, silt, and clay. So every mineral soil has sand, silt, and clay. Could have all three, it could only have one. And it's found in the soil. It influences the amount of water the soil can hold. So usually the higher silts and clays, the finer textures, the soil can hold more water. The rate of movement through the soil, so how quickly water and air can move through the soil. And usually the higher the sand percentage, the more water can move through the soil, and soil fertility as well. So usually soils that have high silts and clays tend to hold a lot of nutrients and hold a lot of water. But at the same time, you can also have too much water held in that causes flooding or causes erosion on the surface of the soil because the water can't penetrate down through. So there are 3 different particle sizes. You can kind of get an idea of the sand, silt, and clay size. So you can see the sand, the silt, and the clay. So if you think of this, as a system of a soil column where you have all these large sand particles together, there's lots of space in between these sand particles, so water can move through quickly. Whereas the clays are so small, there's not a lot of large space between these particles, so water tends to hang up and not be able to go down through the soil. So then different combinations of sand, silt, and clay give rise to soil texture classes. So here are the texture classes for Canada. You can see it runs from sand, on my mouse, sand all the way down to clay, with sand being coarse, or the easiest to put water down through, to fine, which holds the most moisture. And there's all these different classes: loamy sand, sandy loam, Those are just different percentages of sand, silt, and clay. So what is loam, you might ask? Well, it's an even mixture of sand, silt, and clay. So relatively even mixture. If you have sand, silt, and clay, you're probably going to end up with a loam texture. And there's here's a picture of one of our past students doing a field test where we can actually take a soil sample from a soil pit, and we can actually do a field test in the field where we feel the soil texture and be able to classify it ourselves. And we're actually going to do that.
Sheldon, if
Yep, go ahead.
I went to my garden and did a sample and found it to be like this picture, really clayey, would I just walk away from it, or is there something I could do to help bring it up to a texture that would work for my, let's say, tomatoes and corn and carrots?
Yeah, completely. So with, you know, we get those questions all the time. It's, you know, what do we do? I have a really heavy textured soil, so a really fine textured soil in my garden. What can I do about it? So the whole point is you want to be able to open up that structure. You want to be able, you know, if we go back to the picture of the two different soils, we want to be able to create that soil that's light and fluffy so everything can get down through it. The water and the nutrients, the water and the root systems can get down through it. So how do we create that open system within the soil? And one of those ways is by adding compost or adding organic matter into the soil so we can open up that soil. So if you notice, you know, a lot of growers will actually, a lot of farmers will actually add compost or manure back into their soil yearly, and that helps replenish nutrients, open up the soil structure, provide that food source for those organisms. Yeah, so that is another beneficial management practice, BMP, that we can use with heavy textured soils, is we can go in and add organic matter back into that soil.
Okay. Super.
So the next soil property, so we looked at soil texture, so that's linked back to, like I said, this soil physical indicator. So we can actually measure soil texture to get an idea about the physical soil quality indicator. The next one is soil color. So this soil color is linked more to the biological soil quality indicators because it's the food source. So soil color can be linked back to organic material and the minerals that are present in the soil. So it can be linked back to two, but the more to the organic material portions, the biological. So soil color provides valuable clues to the nature of the soil, the conditions of the soil, and the fertility. So soil color is produced by the minerals that are present, the organic matter content, so how much organic matter is in there, and the soil drainage, or how much water is held in the soil. So here you can see there's a picture of a field in PEI, and you can see this, you know, brilliant red soil that's found in PEI. Does anybody know what causes that color, the red color?
Great question. Here comes the answer.
Nutrients. Clay. Iron.
Iron, clay.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head. It's the iron content. The iron content. So yeah, good job. So it makes it very productive soil, and it makes it that red color. It's that iron oxide that's found in the soil. And then if you look at these two pictures, the picture that's on the lower left-hand side, so there's two different soils here. So here's where we're looking at organic matter. So which picture, the one on the left, the one with black, or the one that's brown, which one has a higher organic matter content?
It's the black one.
Yeah. See how easy soils is? You know, it's great. So yeah, the higher organic matter content is the darker soil. So this is organic material, could be compost, could be plant material that's added back to the soil, and this provides the food source and lots of nutrients and minerals for the plants or the organisms that live there. And then here's the, you know, this is a soil that's either from an agricultural area or lower in the soil pit, so down, you know, in the B horizon, where it has little organic matter. Usually, as a rule of thumb, the higher you are in the soil profile, the more organic material is present. The lower you are, the less organic material is present. And then soil color is described by using the Munsell color charts. I sent some books to you guys, 4 different Munsell color charts that you can take a look at. And its color is described as hue, value, and chroma. An example would be 10 wire 506. So it's just a matter of, you know, as somebody who works with soils, we can actually take a Munsell book to the field. We can grab a soil sample, put it in the Munsell book and say, okay, what color does it match? And then this color gives us indications of, you know, what is the geology of the area, what nutrients and minerals can be found, what new minerals can be found within the soil, as well as what kind of organic matter can be found, as well as the drainage, how much water is held in the soil. So soil color is a really great example of a soil property that we can use to link back to soil quality. And then the last one I'll talk about today is the soil drainage. So
5 minutes, Sheldon.
Soil drainage is the length of time it takes water to be removed from the system. So here you can see, as there's 6 different drainage classes, and as you move from rapidly to very poor, the soil tends to be duller in color. It tends to have less of these really bright horizons, and tends to end up getting a lot of water in the bottom of the soil pit. And I don't know, I only have 5 minutes, but I'm really going to try to work through one of these exercises.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, great. So now we just talked about all these soil quality indicators and how we're going to measure them. So let's actually measure them. So if you guys have the Stony Brook soil that I had sent you in a bag, it should be like a reddish in color. I don't know if my screen is picking up the red color. But here is the soil texture key, and we're going to actually work through it to determine the soil texture of this Stony Brook soil. So what we're going to do is I'm going to keep it on the screen. We're going to work through it together so we can get an idea of what the texture class is of this soil. And this soil is actually located in your area as well. It's in the central lowlands of New Brunswick. So it ranges from like Chipman all the way out towards PEI. And then if we just work through it, it says place approximately 25 grams of soil in your palm. So just fill your palm up with soil. It's going to be messy, and that's okay. So I'm going to tip my screen here. So we have 25 grams of soil in our palm. Just fill your palm up, and then we're going to add water to it. Make a huge mess. And what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to make putty out of this soil.
Great way to start the week. Mm-hmm. Oh, my battery.
So we're going to work, we're just going to work the soil in our hands with the water, add more water if you need some, or add more soil if you need some. And what you're going to create is you're going to create a putty kind of like this, just like a ball of soil. So once you guys have created a ball of soil, if you can just show me so I'll know to move on to the next step. Nothing like dirty classrooms on a Monday morning, right?
Don't you feel like you're right there with the class? Micheline, you have a beautiful class. They're so quiet. Oh, they're on mute.
From you, that's why.
The
township is regular.
I think I need more dirt.
All right, so has everybody been able to make a ball of soil?
No.
Yes.
All right.
Wait, yes.
We.
So then if we just look back to the screen, and we're just going to go down through. It says, so if it's like we create a ball, it says, does the soil remain in a ball when squeezed? Here it is. Oh,
No.
there it is. So does the soil remain in a ball when squeezed? Well, I just made a ball out of mine. So are you guys able to do the same? Yeah. I see somebody rolling it in their hands. So it's probably a ball. So it's yes. We move down.
Yes.
It says place the ball of soil between your thumb and your forefinger and gently and push it out to make a ribbon. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your soil. See if I can get this. Take your soil and you're going to push it between your thumb and your finger and create a ribbon. So do you see this ribbon that's being created as I push it out? And what will happen is that the soil will break off for its own weight, and you want to keep this ribbon. So the ribbon that I created is there. Let me make another one.
That wasn't your best ribbon, Sheldon.
I know it wasn't. Let's try it again. So I'm pushing it between my thumb and my finger. Here we go. And then, oh, it broke off. So this is what I have for a ribbon that was created. Does everybody see how to do that?
Where is it?
What are we trying to make?
A ribbon. A ribbon. No, comme ça.
So you got to push it with your thumb and your finger.
Dave, could you please come to the office? Dave, to the office, please.
Comme ça.
So mine is about this long. Everybody good?
Oh no.
So then what we need to do in the key, it says, does the soil form a ribbon? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now we need to figure out how long this ribbon is. Is it less than 2 centimeters long, 2 to 5, or greater than 5 centimeters long? What's your thoughts?
Less than 2.
Less than 2.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's more than 2.
This is more than 2.
Yeah. 2 to 5.
So the one that I have is about 4 centimeters long.
Mine's too dry.
So what do you guys think?
No. I can't lift.
So if mine was 4 centimeters long, it puts me in the middle. What about you guys?
Is it 2? What was yours? 6 inches? Like 3?
Yep. Okay, perfect. So it's about, yours is about 3, mine's about 4. I've been doing it a bit longer, so we'll take that as an answer. So it puts us down in this center column that we need to move down here. So it says excessively wet, a small pinch of soil. So take a little piece of that ribbon you had. You're going to take some water, and you're going to add water to it, and then you're going to create a mud on the palm of your hand. So you should have a muddy hand when you're done. Everybody have a muddy hand, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, so now it says, if I get the mouse again, I got muddy hands trying to use a mouse. It says, does the soil feel very gritty or does it feel very smooth? Gritty, yeah, great job, guys. So then if we look back on the screen, if it feels very gritty, then what texture class, once I get the mouse again, what texture class do we have if we're in the center column?
Very gritty.
Sandy clay.
Sandy clay.
Loam.
Sandy clay loam. Great job. Fantastic.
Right.
That's it.
Sounds perfect for my garden. A sandy clay loam.
So, and this is what, like I said, this is one of the soils that is around your location. I sent 2 other soil samples to you guys, riverbank soil and maybe a Carlton, I think. So feel free to work through 2 of those with this key again, and see how they're different, how they feel different. Are they smooth? Do they create a ball? And that'll give you indications on the texture class, as well as, you know, how much water can pass through it, how easy plants can pass through it as well.
Thank you very much.
And then I just have one more slide. That's it. So, so then, yeah. So just to like sum everything back up again. Yeah. So, you know, like I said, all these soil quality indicators, all these soil properties can all be linked back to the landscape and what we can see from the picture, what we can see. So you can see that the different changes, the different composition, or what tree species are found and what plant species are found in different locations can give us really good indications on what we're going to find there for soil, and how soil is one of the driving factors that influence where a plant is located. So, and are there any questions?
Hands up if you enjoyed Sheldon's talk this morning. Yay! Thank you so much, Sheldon. That was fantastic. I said I learn something new every time I hear Sheldon talk or get the dirt out on soil. And I just, Micheline and Adam, the 2 teachers on the screen, if you would like the texture key, the ribbon test key, just shoot me off an email, and there should be a little assessment in your inbox today. For all the workshops, you can give your students, and there's an answer key at the bottom. So thank you so much, kids. Enjoy your break, and we will await the next class to enter the room. Micheline, that was great. Thank you.
So yes, now I'm getting ready for my other session.
Okay, super. We'll see you in forestry.
Thank you. Yes.